Hello, thank you for joining me again in this video. Today we will be looking at how Sage Evolution handles the procure to pay process of a business. Now, in order to demonstrate this or to start the demonstration, I'm going to click on requisition, which is under transaction advanced procurement. Now the first step will be to raise a requisition, which is an internal document that will be raised by someone to say these are the things that we will be needing the business to purchase, or we will be needing finance to purchase. Okay, so in this case I'm just going to come to here, the module. If it's a stock item, then you select stock. If it's a service item like a consulting or laundry or whatever it is that is non-stock, you select the geo, right? So I select the stock here. I just leave out the sector. You can specify the area for this requisition. Come here and I'll do the item, so I can say 100mm lens. I'll leave out the supplier for now because I'm assuming I don't know who's going to be supplying this. Remember I said it's an internal document. So come to the next line. We'll still do that. Maybe select that item there. I'll leave out the quantities for now. I'll still come in there to fill it up. Next, then select let's see, maybe some aluminium sheet. Select another one. Let's make it 4, so I can say bakery equipment. Now for the quantities, I can just put 2 of each, 2 there, and 2. Okay, notice that the system automatically assigns a supplier to this particular item. That is because we tied this particular supplier to this item as the preferred supplier. Okay, now at this stage you will have to define who you want to send it to. Now, although you can allow the system to define who this particular transaction will be going to automatically, or you can do it manually. I've decided to do it manually so I don't have to log in and log out as different users. Okay, so here I'm just going to select myself, so it will come back to me. Even though in this typical scenario it will have to be another person, but like I said, you can automate the process as well. So I'll select myself there and I can just run through that. So select myself, run through the whole thing so to fill it up. And then since the incident type, which is what controls the workflow, is not defined in this case, I'm just going to say undefined and then yes. Okay, now if you want to tie each of these requisitions to a particular job, you can do that. Okay, to a particular project, you can do that. So at the end of the day, when you expense on this particular items you're purchasing, you'll be able to view an expense report per project. And then you can also tie it to a particular job. So what happens is, if I tie this particular line to any of these jobs, at the point of receiving these items, the item will be automatically allocated to that job, which will still be in progress or still active at that stage. Okay, there are other things you can do here. You can attach a file. So maybe like you need pictures of certain items that you're requesting for, you can attach into this particular source document. And then you can attach notes as well. Should you want anybody to get anything or know anything about this particular requisition, you can attach a note, and this note will follow through the entire procure to pay process. Okay, before you do the requisition, you can also do a budget query to know if you have the budget for this purchase. So if you have tied the budget to, say, a project, or you have tied the budget to a particular account, then the system will pull through the budget in terms of, and will show you the actual and the budget for that particular requisition that you are making. Okay, but in this case I have not tied any budget to the account or to the project, as you can see. Then with Sage Evolution, you also have the flexibility of importing these requisitions from an Excel template. Okay, so in a typical scenario, what will happen is one person will collect the requisitions and that person's name can be here. So let's say I'm collecting it on behalf of Musa. Okay, Musa's department. So I can put Musa's department here, and I am admin and I'm collecting it on behalf of Musa department. I can be anything. Okay, now I put it in here. I can import the Excel, so I can pass an Excel sheet round and people fill it in, and then this can be imported into Excel. That will be in a typical scenario where you do not want to give everybody access to the system. Okay, validate that, and then we do the post, and the system will post the item. Let me see. So we'll do a preview, and that is our requisition. Okay, so because I've sent it to myself, it's going to come back to me. Now at this stage, the batch has been posted. Now in a typical scenario, whoever you sent that particular batch to will get a prompt, okay, or an email, and then the person will be able to act on that particular prompt or on that particular requisition, as the case may be. Okay, now remember I sent it to myself, so here I'm just going to come to requisition incident here, and I will see all the requisitions that needs my approval. At this stage now, I can go into any one of them. So notice that the requisition I just did, they all have the same requisition number, which is that. Okay, from here to here is one requisition, and as the case may be, that's the way it works. Okay, now remember that you can also filter, so you can have a million requisition to approve here, but you can filter to say show me the requisition of for what I just did, or the last requisition, which is this one in this case. Okay, and then down here the system will also show you the system trail of who approved it. So I'm just going to go into this particular one now and apply and approve it. So I come to my requests and I say approve for RFQ. I do not want to approve for purchase order because I want to run through the entire flow. So approved for RFQ there, approved for RFQ, approved for RFQ, approved for RFQ as well. Okay, so that has been approved. Now I can validate that and post the requisition again. Okay, so it has been validated and it is no longer in our grid. This now, so remember what I want you to assume here is that this processes is going from one person to the other. Like I said earlier, I do not want to log in and log out. Now the next thing will be to generate an RFQ, and a different department or the same person can handle this as well. Now if you come here and you click on find, the system will spool through that particular requisition that we just processed for RFQ, and then we go into it again, and then here we are now able to select the supplier. Okay, so we can say, we can tell the system to just do a random selection, or we can select the suppliers manually ourselves. Okay, in this case I'm just going to select the suppliers manually. I have to say okay, this one. So let me say I'm dealing with 4 suppliers. Okay, so 4 suppliers will apply for that particular product, and then I can decide to copy down the supplier, or I can decide to select different supplier for the different products. So in this case I'm just going to copy the supplier, and then it's going to copy everything down there. Okay, so here you'll be expected to put in the expected deadline, or expected delivery date, sorry, and the quotation deadline. Okay, now once you do a generate, the system usually will generate an Excel file that you can send automatically to these suppliers, and then when you send it to them, they will be expected to fill in that Excel, and then you import it into the system like we're going to see very shortly. Okay, so I think I've generated that. Oh sorry, parameters not specified. So now I can now do the quotation parameters because I've set it up to do so. So if I come to put quotation parameters, I can say that the maximum score for a government, it must be a government approved company, so I'm saying 50. maximum score here, I can say 50 as well, so that to make up 100, and I say okay. At this stage I can now do a preview, and the system will generate the request for quotation, which will be sent to every single supplier. As you can see, okay, I have multiple quotations here for each of the suppliers. All right, as you can see, that's for supplier 2, that's for supplier 3. Okay, now the request for quotation has been sent to the suppliers. Like I said, it can be automated, and now when you automate it, you can click on this function here, and after the supplier has filled it in, you click on the function here, and the system will import the parameters that the supplier has filled in from the Excel sheet that will be stored in the particular folder. But in this case, I'm just going to do it manually, just so you follow the process. So if I do find here, that's the quotation, the request for quotation we have done, tied to each of the suppliers. As you can see, each of the supplier has a share of this particular each of these items. Okay, usually when you do that import, this is what the system will fill up these details for you automatically. Okay, because the suppliers would have filled it in that Excel sheet. Okay, but in this case, I'm just going to do it manually so I can explain some things. So the expected price here is 85,714, whereas for this supplier he's quoting, let's say 70,000. Notice that the system will put it in green, which means good to go. This one is 50, the supplier quoted 60, that one is 15. So can say red, good to go. 3,000, 4,000 on the spot. The system will leave it as white. You get the picture now. Okay, it's when you do the importation. Okay, this is what the system will do for you automatically. The system will fill in the quoted price from the vendors, and will also fill in the quotation received dates. Okay, that is when you received it from that particular vendor. And then if the vendors if you want to attach any particular source document for each of these items from the vendors, you also have the flexibility of doing that and adding that document. Okay, so at this point in time, we're now ready to save for evaluation. So we'll do a save. Once again, it will tell us to enter the score for all mandatory fixed parameters. So here, remember that the score we set up was 50. So let's say for this particular supplier, you have to do it for each of the suppliers. We can say this supplier scored 40. Here she's called 30, 50. Okay, so we can now do a save. The quotation is now ready for evaluation, so we'll do okay. Once again, the evaluation can be done by another manager or can be done by yourself. So if I do an evaluate quote and I do that requisition number which we're working with, to do a find, the system will bring it forth. At this stage, you see that the system has selected the preferred suppliers. Okay, what the system is using for this calculation is the parameters that we used in this case, not the price. However, you can also set up the system to use the price. But if you look here, you will see that the system is selecting 66,000 based on the parameters I've set. Okay, however, supplier 5 is quoting lower, so I'm just going to select supplier 5 here. Okay, so you see that the system will tell me that this will be logged as a deviation, so I'm just going to select supplier 5 here. Okay, and then I'll save it for approval. It will be assigned to an agent to approve finally, and then I'll set that will be myself or any other person. The system will also ask you the reason why you changed the supplier. Okay, so based on the reasons you have imputed, you can put in something. Okay, so let me just say to ratify any minor breaches of the procurement process. So I do okay here. Into the reports. So that is the report for each of the supplier. Like I said, the system used these parameters based on what has been set up. So the quotations has been evaluated for each of these supplier. That's for supplier 3, that's for supplier 5, and that's for supplier 8. Okay, So do okay, we close that. And then remember we sent that RFQ for approval to, I sent it to myself, right? Okay, so that means I will have to approve it before it will come up here. All right, now at this stage I can now define or decide which one is going to be going through. I can decide to say these two will be going, the other two let's drop for now because they're expensive. So I'll approve it. I also have the flexibility of viewing other quotations that has been raised. Okay, so if I want to view this, maybe I want to make a final decision, I can expand this and view other quotations that was raised for other suppliers as well. Okay, remember, because the system is calculating it based on the score, what the system will be showing me will be their scores. So I can just do okay here if I'm not changing anything. If I'm changing anything, I can change and then recommend the quotes to the evaluator. Okay, so I do a close, approve this too. To tell me, do you want to approve for purchase order? I'll say yes, and then it has been approved for purchase order. Now from that end, now we can pick that particular requisition there, do a view, and those two that we selected will come up. Now this is from the procurement department now, or the buyer. Now at this stage the person can also decide to say, we do not want to buy this one because it's expensive, so we're just going to buy this. Okay, so if I just do that one, I can say process only that particular item. Okay, select to which warehouse is going to be going into. So I'm saying that it's going into my master warehouse. I can set up other things like the delivery method, how do you want it delivered, the status, the priority, and I can also tie it to a project. Okay, so here I'll place the order. The order has been placed, and so at this stage the finance department can now raise a purchase order from that particular transaction. Now notice that it is just one transaction that flowed through from requisition up to the stage of purchase order. Okay, so if we come to the purchase order and we do an open, remember that the system will also send email alerts as these processes go from one stage to the other. Okay, so I'm just going to find that purchase order now. So we'll say all pending, and that is the one that finally came through out of the whole purchase order we did. Okay, on the purchase order screen, I'll be expected to now place the order that will be sent to the suppliers automatically via email. But before I do that, I will have to select the warehouse I intend to have these goods come into. So here I'm going to select master warehouse here, and then I'll place the order. The purchase order will be printed and will be sent to the supplier automatically via email. Now at this stage, when the supplier is now ready to supply these particular items, I will come into this same page and do a receive stock, and then at that stage I'll be expected, or the warehouse manager will be expected to now impute the quantity that has been received. Sage Evolution will support both partial and full receipt. So if I do 2 here saying I'm receiving the entire 2, the system will take that. However, if I want to do 1 and process the rest later, the system will also accept and process the one that is ready to be processed now. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to do 2 there, and then click on the receive stock. Now I have set up the system to do the process invoice as well as the receive stock at the same time. However, you can set it up in such a way that the process invoice can be done only when you have received the supplier invoice, after which you put in the supplier invoice number here, or you can do a received stock and process the invoice later. You can also do both, so there can be another function here that can be configured so that when you press that receive stock and process invoice at the same time, both of them will work accordingly. But like I said, I've set it up to process the invoice, which will also receive the stock at the same time. So I'm just going to do a process invoice here, and then the system is going to tell me that this supplier is over time spot. Because I have the permission, I will just ignore, and I don't want to view the purchase order invoice anymore. This is my goods received note, which is on my GRN, as some people call it. And then I have my supplier invoice. Now remember, you can also force the system to ensure that whoever is raising a supplier invoice imputes the supplier invoice number from the supplier source document. So here I'm just going to do yes, and that is the supplier invoice, and the system or the transaction has been completed at this stage. The payment, which is the next thing, will be covered in another video where we will show a complete payment approval process. Thank you for watching, and please do subscribe.